Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about in this case, the Supreme Court of the United States, but it could be any Supreme Court or any High Court in any jurisdiction, whether it be Australia or Britain or Germany or France, wherever. But in this instance, I'd like to look at the career and work of Justice Kagan on the United States Supreme Court. Now, we need to sort of separate or ask ourselves, is certain jurists on the Supreme Court, are they jurists with no private opinions, as in ideological opinions, or are they activists? Or are they activists under certain conditions but not others? So let's just have a look at that now. Kagan's Jewish, and the Democrats seem to have a particular keenness for putting Jewish activists on the Supreme Court. I don't know why that is, but they seem to. Merrick Garland, as an example, was a candidate. So as Obama appointed, as I understand it, was Kagan. So if you look at Kagan's career, it would be hard to find a more impressive, on paper, a more impressive CV. She's lectured in law, so lectured in jurisprudence. As I understand it, was the dean of the law faculty in Harvard. I mean, goodness me, that means that in my view, that means you're effectively one of the foremost exponents of jurisprudence in the world. So she's held that position. She's also held the Solicitor General's job, and began in law, clerking for Judge Thurgood Marshall, and so has had many years in academia and public service, all of it in the legal profession, including small time, as I understand it, in private practice for a prestigious law firm that relies very heavily on government work. So it would be hard on paper. It would be hard to find someone that would be better qualified, sort of being the Solicitor General of the United States and being the Dean of Law at Harvard, the law faculty at Harvard. That means you're up there. You're the technically, at least, the creme de la creme of what the legal profession can produce. So just on that basis, you'd have to say, well, what a well qualified candidate Kagan would have been for the Supreme Court. But then let's look at some of Kagan's musings and reasons for judgment and things like that, and deliberations and whatnot. So whether you get it on audio or in writing, and if you have a look at it, and for someone who's got those sort of credentials, that sort of background, I expected some very intellectual and if not quite intelligent, brilliant analysis of any legal situation, and put forward views that would be worthy of all-round consideration within the wider realms of legal jurisprudence. So. But that's not what I'm seeing anyway. So having a look at that again, looking at audio and in writing, if I just sort of forget who it is, I could be looking at the musings of an activist law student, someone of a very young emotional age. Maybe a 20-year-old law student at a third tier university or something, someone who hasn't been taught or trained to believe that the law is there and it to be impartially applied, that rule of law to be applied to everybody equally, and that the facts of a case matter and the ideology doesn't. But Kagan, in my view, doesn't display those things. Now, I think if the evidence is just utterly overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming, that as a jurist, and she would accept that. But if there's any room, even a small bit of room for ideology to be put in there, as to link any two pieces of information together, it seems that Judge Kagan will take that. And if you look at some of the recent judgments, there's a very ideological touch to it. But again, from perspective of a 20-year-old student, it's not someone who's had to make momentous decisions, deal with momentous issues, realize the consequences of those issues. It's still an activist student, running around with an NGO waving placards, who've got a gig in the High Court, in the Supreme Court. So I'm not I'm looking at these judgments and these musings, these writings, and so on, and even the deliberations and the way complex issues, and some not so complex, are thought through, and I see how often the ideological is introduced. Now, if you look at certainly Kagan had a Jewish school education, and that education is usually quite rigorous. But the Jewish education hammers on and on about how evil and wicked the Gentiles have been to the Jews, and how making the world a better place means that you break Gentile power over the world. And if Christian Gentile power is broken, then the world is somehow automatically going to just magically turn into a better place. Like just magic dust is going to do it. And so they're very much having that. Now, if you sort of see how not only Jewish activists, but activists generally view that the law is a device, and that courts and judges and judgments is a device to change society. Put those damn evil, wicked, straight white males in their fucking place. Crush Gentiles, crush Christians, and redress past grievances and turn it very much into a social justice production machine. And there seems to be, if not association with, but definitely substantial sympathy for that overall position, in my view, expressed by Kagan. So do we have a Jewish social justice activist swanning around pretending to be a judge in the highest court in the land of the United States, and having to weigh some very meaty constitutional issues, and having to bring to it the great intellect of the positions that she's having, Dean of Harvard and so on, so Solicitor General and the like. But I'm not seeing any of that. Maybe that's there, but I'm just not seeing it. Maybe it's there in only the judgments and musings I didn't look at, and maybe it's only not there in the ones that I did. So that's I guess a remote possibility. But if you look at and Sotomayor is sort of similar in the sense of seeing activism as the primary purpose of sitting there, not judgments. Now, the Democrats and the globalists who control them are very much in favour of stacking the Supreme Court with activists. But you see this too, George Soros and the various NGOs, they support and fund all sorts of activist lawyers, judges, district attorneys, public prosecutors, all around, not simply in the United States, but elsewhere across the Western world. One of a senior judge in Australia, for example, was a placard waving activist, and had strident views on social justice issues that were hysterical in the ideological plane, and it was so bad that he was invited to leave this particular court for his activism, and no sooner was he out the door than he was given the dean of law at one of Australia's biggest universities. And the guy's a screaming activist, and the students that come out of that class and that college are similarly screaming activists. The law is irrelevant. Activism is the issue. Social justice issue. Fuck the law. Fuck jurisprudence. Fuck the idea of impartial application. Fuck the idea of facts. We're dealing with ideology here, and we have to produce equal outcomes and equity, and redressing past grievances. You've got to make up for the bad things. And so, the straight white males are evil and they're all Hitlers. This is the sort of stuff that's being put out there and what the students are doing. Now, I've spoken to legal students, ones from prestigious law schools, and I've asked basic questions about how jurisprudence and the law was conducted in various countries, and how the usurpation of the law and was used to get any group. It could be Jews, it could be anything. Some of the devices the Nazis used in the People's Court to get Jews. They used a device or a number of devices. One where the bar of evidence required to make an allegation against a Jew was very low. So effectively, any Gentile could rock on in and go, that Jewish guy did this or that. And that would be enough. I mean, they didn't have to prove it, and the evidence. And then when it came to court, there were all sorts of little tricks like bouncing the court hearing around to different towns at the last minute. So the Jewish guy would turn up to refute the charges or the allegations. And he told when he got there that the hearings at a village 20 miles away, it started half an hour ago. We sent you a letter, didn't you get it? And that type of thing. And or the Jewish guy would come in with witnesses that he hadn't even been in the town at the time, so he couldn't have committed the crimes or that were alleged. And the judge would just, I'm not letting your witnesses give testimony, and then he'd make up some bullshit technical reason for it. And so, okay, you got no evidence to prove that you weren't there. Damn it, you're guilty. Bang. And so it's just crazy. Due legal process was just utterly trashed when they were targeting particular groups, Jews in this case, in the Nazi People's Court. But the same thing would happen in other courts, in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. There were all these, the Chinese People's Courts. Anyone could make an allegation to say, you were a landlord and you exploited the people. And that would be it. And the guy could be beaten to death on the street. And if they found out till later that, no, you got the wrong guy. He was never a landlord. He was a peasant from over there. Who cares, So these sorts of things going. Now, I was watching a court case that had a Jewish judge. And now this guy's old enough to know, and this guy went to a Jewish school as well, so he's old enough to know all about the Nazis and the things they did. Now, the way that the Jews could have been protected in Nazi Germany, or anywhere for that matter, any minority, is that due legal process must apply. The rule of law must apply. You can't just go and allege someone did something without evidence that you can produce in a court of law. And that's vital. Now, the Nazis let that slip when it was targeting people they didn't like. They did have, due legal process, proper stuff in other cases. But when it was after folks they didn't like, they just, it's too hard to get at the people you don't like. If the law is applied properly, and if due legal process is applied, it's very hard to target anybody, to victimize anybody. If the rule of law is applied and due legal process is in place, that's why they have to get rid of it. So I'm watching this court case in Australia with a Jewish judge, and he does exactly the same things as the Nazis did in the People's Court. He knows how the Jews have been victimized. He would have had a chapter and verse at his Jewish schools. He'd have had it beaten over the head with it. And what does he do when he gets to be in a position of a judge? He does exactly the same thing that the Nazis did. This time he's sticking it up the Gentiles, and he thinks he's doing something wonderful. What is he, redressing a past balance? The lessons of the past just don't get learned. Now, this guy did the same things. He claimed that a letter had been sent that it either hadn't been sent or had been sent 5 seconds ago. The guy who had the allegations against him had his witnesses lined up, wouldn't allow the witnesses to give evidence, and the list just went on. The guy was trying to give evidence in the stand, judge wouldn't allow it. did everything to fuck this guy up, totally suspended due legal process, and seemed to get off on doing it, by the way. But so I'm thinking to myself, if these people, the Jews, have been so victimized over centuries, why do they think that victimization occurred? Apart from, you know, folks not liking them or they're annoying people, yeah, apart from all that, if you want to go and get someone, a group or a person or, you know, a tribe, anything you don't like, if you have to go through due legal process, you have to produce the evidence. It has to stack up the facts. And if you apply the law uniformly to everybody, you know, the rule of law, then it is very difficult to go. And what we all need to protect and should protect is the rule of law and due legal process. Those are the things to protect. And that's something that in my view, is a lesson that's lost on many judges, prosecutors, lawyers, and so on, but also, in my view, some of the activists sitting on the Supreme Court. And I'll just sort of close with this, that the globalist left are very good at creating poster child flunkies and stooges to do their work. So if the intellect that Kagan, in my view, is bringing to the Supreme Court is something that was evident throughout, then she was never a candidate for dean or for a law professor or for Solicitor General. The whole thing's been political, and she was groomed as a prepared, organised flunky to sit on the Supreme Court or in some high judicial office when the chance came along. And now she's, in my view, delivering on that by behaving as a early post-pubescent activist rather than a senior judge of impeccable credentials that the paperwork and the CV suggests she should be. You've been with Tassers today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.